Now, Councillor Julie Iles is the Cabinet Member responsible for education at Surrey County Council and joins me now. Very good morning to you, Julie. Thanks ever so much for your time. Now, we're seeing this issue about larger numbers of pupils in classes. So is that why you sent the letter saying that head teachers could now prioritise?
Well, we've all been asked to do everything that we can to stop the spread of the virus, and really it's about common sense in some cases where we simply have to limit non-essential contact. So there are children who need to be in school, or vulnerable learners, for example, children with an education healthcare plan, children with a social worker, those young people who we know are safest in the school environment. And it's a very tricky balance. I absolutely understand what parents are saying in the clips that you've just played, and that the move to homeschooling has broken some of them again. We get that, but also our teachers have got a duty of care. They've got to look at the amazing job that they've done to pivot at short notice, to adapt to these new regulations, and to make sure that education is continuing for children and young people. And that means, of course, that some of the social distancing measures have changed. So we've gone from 1 metre to 2 metres. We've gone from a tighter definition of vulnerable learners for it to include those who do not have technology at home, or those who don't have a quiet learning space, all of which adds to the numbers coming into these settings. And let's not forget, the more the virus spreads, the more it's in our schools and our communities. And some of these schools will be suffering from staff availability. So they have to make a risk assessment about what is safe and what isn't for these pupils who are attending.
And are you seeing more this time round compared with the earlier lockdown?
I can only tell you anecdotally, Leslie, because the information goes straight back to the DFE. But anecdotally, we know from head teachers that we're seeing over 50% attendance at the moment. And as your clip said, that is much, much higher than during the first lockdown. And it's tricky to make sure that children in those numbers are able to follow all of the preventative measures that have been put in place. And then let's not forget that although our schools are much better equipped to support home learning this time, they've got to juggle that with the staff availability and the children who are already in school. And it's very difficult to deliver remote learning and face-to-face learning at the same time.
Yeah, and I just so sympathise with both sides of it, because from a parent's point of view, with homeschooling, it could be a situation where actually they could have sent their child in during lockdown 1 but chose not to and tried to carry on with the homeschooling, and this time round are just finding it too difficult.
I think we're all finding that this time round is more difficult, and I think that's probably a reflection of the fact that the rates are very high across the board in Surrey. We've got a higher rate here than in both the South East and in England. And to put that into context, about 7,500 cases in Surrey in the last 7 days. So although children with at least one parent or carer who's critical to COVID-19, or the EU transition, that's also been added to this extension of who can request places. They can request on-site learning at school if it's required, but lots of those parents in the critical sectors will be able to ensure that their child is safely kept at home, and in these cases we're saying that they should be. Every child who can be safely cared for at home should be, and that goes back to protecting the NHS and to saving lives.
What have you made of the issues that Marcus Rashford has drawn our attention to once again?
Well, we had some images posted on social media which indicated that some school providers were not putting sufficient nutritional food supplies in boxes. And we checked that through. I mean, there are a variety of providers in Surrey, so I can't speak for all of them. And the one that is our own traded company, we can't promote them over the others operating in this sector. But we know that that company is providing nutritional food that meets the requirements of safe storage and safe delivery. Not only is it a decent quantity of food to provide 5 days lunches, but they put a menu card in with it so that it's planned over the week, and they also provide videos as to how to prepare this food. So we have reassured ourselves that that catering supplier is delivering great value for money, actually, and some of our head teachers have said they don't know how they do it.
Right.
Now, to be sure about that, the new Director of Children's Services at Surrey County Council and myself will be doing an essential visit to some of these hubs, packaging that for the provider and just checking in to reassure ourselves in person. But we think that supplier that we've checked through has properly got this.
And I wonder if you'll be able to answer this, and I'm not sure if you will or not, Julie. Somebody asked earlier, they said, in terms of school meals, I gather that these are being sent to schools which have to pay to have them delivered to individual homes without additional budget provision. How are the meals getting to the individuals that need them?
The food parcels should be provided through the school catering team or the provider that the school has got. And there's a variety of arrangements in place. They might deliver it themselves. They might work with the local district and borough councils and the voluntary sector for that distribution mechanism. So there isn't one standard. And of course, each school can choose its own catering provider. So I couldn't answer across the board, Leslie, but I do know, and I say it every time, that our schools, our colleges, our nursery and childcare providers are doing an amazing job of making sure that our children are looked after and that education is continuing.